Next in line is the keynote address by our chief guest. May I now request our Vice Principal, Mr. Salim, to accompany our chief guest, Mr. N.K. Premachandran. Mr. M.K. Premachandran is the Member of Parliament from Kollam Lok Sabha constituency. May I now request Aisha Iqbal of Class 10 to present a bouquet to our chief guest as a token of love and appreciation. Give a big round of applause, everyone. Thank you, Aisha.
Most respected Mr. Malail Musa Koi, Director of India International School, Mangaf, the guest of honor, and he has done a wonderful speech paying tributes to the stalwart Janab P.A. Ibrahim Haji, that is none other than the former Minister of Kerala and is a great son of a great leader, Janab C.H. Muhammad Koya, Dr. M.K. Munir, the Member of Legislative Assembly of Kerala State, and Faiz Ahmed, the former principal of this institution, Ajil Ibrahim, the great son of P.A. Ibrahim Haji, and the school principal, vice principal, teaching faculty, and dear students and other dignitaries. First of all, I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the school as well as organizers of this inter-school debating competition to address this gathering as the chief guest of the occasion. I take it as a privilege. It's indeed a privilege as far as I am concerned to be the chief guest of the occasion, that too discussing about the freedom of press, independence of press, whether it is biased or truly independent. That is the theme of the discussion, theme of the competition. Before entering into the topic of discussion, I would like to commemorate P.A. Ibrahim Haji, who is well illustrated by Dr. M.K. Munir, as well as the visual presentation, the contributions made by P.A. Ibrahim Haji, especially in the field of education. Myself and my family is having very good association with P.A. Ibrahim Haji. I remember that 2 or 3 times he has visited my house in Kollam. I too had the opportunity to visit his home on so many occasions in Gulf countries as well as in the state of Kerala. We had several occasions so as to interact and to discuss about the current issues, but in particular the system of education which is prevailing in our country. As rightly dear Munir has pointed out, that he is always concerned about the future generation of the globe. Absolutely, that is why he is an educationalist, noble thinker, philanthropist, and also best human being which we can find in the world. Why the best human being? I strongly believe that he is the strict follower of the Islamic ethics and the Islamic law. Such a religious person, true believer of the Islamic deen or Deen al-Islam. And such a noble, pious gentleman has done wonderful service for the humanity, especially in the charity, as well as in the field of education, in the field of industry and entrepreneurship. All the fields he has made his own mark. And he has died. Actually, it was a shocking news for all of us that Ibrahim Haji is not with us, because such a paternal feeling was with him. And rightly what Dr. Munir has said for me and my family also. He was like a guardian, or a, what you say, that the feeling which we do have, an emotional feeling with him. That is why the sad demise of Ibrahim Haji is a great loss to the nation, gross loss to the new generation, especially the coming generation in which he is concentrating, and for the field of education also. So in such a situation, I also pay my tributes to the loving memories of P.A. Ibrahim Haji, who is the founder of the India International School, Mangaf, and so many other educational institutions. Such a wonderful, exemplary contribution to the society can never be ignored or can never be forgotten in such a personality. Once again, I take this opportunity to pay my tributes to the loving memory of P.A. Ibrahim Haji. And the second is, I would like to congratulate the Indian International School Mangaf, especially Janam Musa Koya Haji ji, that in memory of Dr. P.A. Ibrahim Haji, you are organizing an inter-school competition, debating competition, that too in respect of a very pertinent subject, that is media is truly independent or biased? That is a topic of the discussion. So conducting an innovative seminar, conducting an innovative competition among the CBSE school children, to have a debate, the debating skill has to be proved along with the content of the topic. And myself and Munir, we both of us have yesterday had the opportunity to witness the competition. I would like to place it on record, the appreciation, the way by which the students, the new generation has expressed their skill in the debate, especially in the subject of the freedom of press and this subject. We were actually surprised to see that the way by which the debate skill is being built on the students, on the coming generation, for and against. And those who are arguing for the freedom of the press or for whether it is right or not, and similarly putting questions, cross questions, examinations, everything. So it is really surprising as far as we are concerned. Why? Because our new coming generation is updated with the recent developments or the recent occurrences, which especially in the political scenario, in the social scenario, and in particular, this system of our press, freedom of press, and the biased media, everything was well debated yesterday in the debating competition. I take this opportunity to congratulate all the participants, not only the winners, but all the participants who have expressed their skill in the debate, and also in particular the winners. Winners in the debate also has to be appreciated. Once again, we place it on record, our congratulations for the participants and the winners. And the subject which you have selected is very, very interesting. As far as a politician or a legislator like me, a parliamentarian like me, it is very, very interesting that the subject matter, maybe the subject or the topic was selected because of the director of this institution, Malayil Musa Koya ji. He is from the press fraternity, from the print media. Maybe because of him, this topic might have been selected. But yes, it's true, because no school will select such a subject, I think. It's a very, very important subject, and the new generation has to be conversed with this subject. Why? Because media is making drastic structural changes in the society. So the new generation as well as the public at large has to be convinced of the facts and figures and what the media stands for, how it is being working, the functioning of the media, everything should be in the knowledge, in the domain of the public at large, in particular the new generation. That is why I would like to congratulate the organizers of this seminar as well as this competition in selecting such a topic. Coming to the topic, what is freedom of the press? It is very difficult to define the freedom of the press. We know that the Constitution of India, Article 19(1)(a), the constitutional students may be knowing that 19(1)(a) is part 3 of the Constitution, the fundamental rights, the heart and soul of the Constitution of India is part 3, that is the fundamental rights of the citizens and the people living in India, in which 19 clause 1 subclause A of the Constitution provides for the freedom of speech and expression. You have to see nowhere in the Constitution of India the freedom of press is not mentioned elsewhere, anywhere. Even in Article 19(1)(a), there is no mention of freedom of speech and expression. But it is embodied in Article 19(1)(a). Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who is the drafting committee chairman of the Constitution, has unequivocally said, I quote, "No special mention of freedom of press is required, as the press is equivalent to an individual or citizen as far as the right of freedom of speech and expression is concerned," unquote. So no explicit provision is required so as to provide the freedom of the press, because freedom of speech and expression to an individual, to a citizen, is equal to that of a press person, journalist, or to a media organization. It is equivalent to that of it. So there is no need of an explicit provision so as to have press freedom in the Constitution of India. That was the logical explanation given in the Constituent Assembly by Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution. See, in a democracy, without press there is no democracy. Without media there is no democracy. So the people should have the opportunity to express their feelings and views. How to express their feelings and views? Only through the media, that too through the mass communication system prevailing in the country. See, the press, the powerful medium of mass communication, should be free to play its role in building a strong, vibrant democracy. In order to build a strong, vibrant democracy, a free press, independent media is highly essential. See, denial of freedom of press would undermine the power to influence the public opinion. The public opinion is formulated through the means of mass communication media system. If there is no free, independent press or media is not allowed, it is very difficult to mobilize the populistic opinion, the people's opinion, the views, the will of the people will be lost. What is meant by parliament? Parliament means it is the will of the people. How the will of the people is being determined? The will of the people is determined only because of the mass media communication, or the way by which now we are having the digital media, social media, visual media, print media, all those medias are there. But still, the role of media is very, very important in order to highlight the public opinion so as to formulate the policies and programs of the government. This is highly essential. See, in two famous cases, you might have studied, that Ramesh Thapar versus State of Madras and Brij Bhushan versus State of Delhi. The Honorable Supreme Court unequivocally said that 19(1)(a), Article 19(1)(a) is enough as far as the freedom of press is concerned. This will be one of the ingredients of Article 19(1)(a). Further, the Supreme Court has held that the freedom of speech and expression includes the propagation of ideas that is ensured by the freedom of circulation also. That is why the framers of the Indian Constitution was of damn sure, or they were very, very sure that 19(1)(a) includes the freedom of press also. But in US Constitution, United States Constitution, subsequent to the formation of the Constitution of United States of America, The First Amendment took place in which they have made a specific provision in the Constitution that no law or legislature can curtail the freedom of press. Such an explicit specific provision is incorporated in the First Amendment Act of United States of America. So there also you see the freedom of press is well explicitly explained. Now let us see what is freedom of press, because whether the media to be independent or fair or biased, if we want to examine first, we have to understand what is the freedom of press. I would like to make some quotings. Number one is regarding Jefferson Davis, the former president of United States of America. You please see his quotation, his speech. I would like to quote, where it left me to decide whether we should have a government without newspaper. This was in the year 1880, 1860, during those period. Once again I quote, where it left me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without government, I should not hesitate a moment but to prefer the latter, unquote. And if you are asking me a question whether you prefer a government without newspapers or a newspapers without government, Jefferson says that then definitely I will prefer newspapers without the government. That is the importance of the media, that is the importance of the press. At those times, only we are having the newspapers. See, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the architect of the modern India, what he has suggested regarding the freedom of press, I quote, I would rather have a completely free press with all dangers involved in the wrong use of that freedom than a suppressed, regulated press, unquote. Though there are misgivings, misuse of the freedom of speech and expression, misuse of the freedom of the press, even though it is being misused, even then I am ready to adjust or I am ready to accept that the freedom than a suppressed, regulated press. Let me have a media, though it is being misused. That was the observation given by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. The Voltaire, the French writer, he has said, I would like to quote, I do not agree with a word you say. I do not agree a word with you. Sorry, I do not agree with a word you say, but I defend to death your right to say it, unquote. Once again I will quote, I do not agree with a word you say, but I defend to death your right to say it, unquote. I am not agreeing with you for so many your observations or your point of view, but I will die for protecting the right to say that observation by you. This was the observation. This is the freedom of press. But unfortunately, during the time of Madam Mrs. Srimati Indira Gandhi, the former Prime Minister of India, she is having a distinctive view regarding the freedom of press. See, when Mrs. Gandhi addressing the International Press Institute Assembly in New Delhi in 1966, immediately after assuming the office in November 15, she blamed the press and said, I quote, how much liberty should the press have in a country like India, which is engaged in fighting war against poverty, backwardness, superstition and ignorance, unquote. So this is another view advocated by Srimati Indira Gandhi, and so many like-minded persons have advocated this view also. See, 9 years later, that is 1966, this has happened. This statement has happened in the Press Institute, and 9 years after, Madam Srimati Indira Gandhi has declared emergency in India in the year 1975, curtailing the freedom of the press. So why I have quoted all this, and series of Supreme Court judgments. I am not going to all those very relevant Supreme Court judgments in respect to the freedom of press. Series of full bench judgments, the constitutional bench judgments are also there. In short, the Supreme Court has held the freedom of press is the heart and soul of social and political intercourse. Freedom of press is highly essential for the proper functioning of a healthy democracy. A free and independent press is the key mechanism of functioning a healthy democracy. The key factor for the functioning of a healthy democracy is the free press. That is the observation or dictum given by the learned Supreme Court in India. That is why we are considering freedom of press or the media is the fourth pillar of our democracy. That is the importance and significance of democracy, in which there are two views which I have already mentioned. That is absolute free independent press, as mentioned by Jawaharlal Nehru and Jefferson. Absolute and independent, unlimited, uninterrupted power and freedom to the press. That is one view advocated. And another view is that absolute freedom and liberty shall not be provided to the press, especially when we are meeting with challenges. It is not able to achieve the goals when the press is given absolute, unlimited, uninterrupted freedom is given. We will not be able to fight the cause of the people. So the freedom of press has to be limited. These two schools of thoughts were there. I would like to suggest that absolute liberty and freedom should be provided to the media, but with reasonable restrictions as enunciated in Article 19.2 of the Constitution. See, Article 19.2 of the Constitution is very clear. Absolute freedom of the press is given, but at the same time, reasonable restrictions were imposed on the freedom of press and the freedom of speech and expression, so to protect the sovereignty and integrity of India, to protect the security of India, to protect the decency, defamation, and so to morality and so many other cases. Reasonable restrictions can be imposed on the freedom of the press, on the freedom of speech and expression. That is accepted in our Constitution. And I would like to say that Article 19(1)(a) is the manifestation of these rights, which is clearly explained in our Constitution. That means if you are curtailing the freedom of press, you are curtailing or you are infringing the fundamental rights of the citizen of the country. It is against the Constitution of India. Media operates as the trustworthy agent of the people. Media is the agent of the people, trustworthy agent of the people. The voice of the people is highlighted through the media. Then only we can say media is working in a responsible manner. If it is a trustworthy agent of the people, we can very well say that media is acting in a responsible manner. But quite unfortunate to note and explain that nowadays most of the medias are forgetting or neglecting the core responsibilities for some other considerations. What are the some other considerations? So we have to critically introspect regarding the freedom of press. When we allege, when we blame the government and the state regarding the curtailing of the freedom of the press has also critically evaluated the situation prevailing as far as the freedom of press is being used. Because the some other consideration, number one, is for political considerations, that is biased media, and two, the desire for generating unreasonable profit. That is another one. Likewise, it is not a proper functioning of the press or the media. That will lose us the sanctity of the press, and they cannot say that the media freedom is under threat. These are not responsible. It is not the responsible media functioning. So media functioning without compromising the core values are entitled to the privilege of the freedom of press. There, those who are acting in a different way, then the media itself is compromising with the media freedom. So in one way, media itself, because of their activities, they are compromising with the media freedom or the press freedom. That also has to be taken into account. So now we come to the topic whether the media is truly independent or whether the media is biased. If this is the freedom of the press, and this is the role of responsibility of the press to be observed, then we have to critically evaluate on the basis of the political, social situation prevailing in the globe as well as in our country, India, whether the media is independent, truly independent, or whether the media is biased. See, I may say that the present media throughout the world is biased due to so many reasons. The first reason which I would like to highlight is threat from the state, directly and indirectly. The state in the sense, the government, the authorities. The biggest challenge the press is facing, the media is facing is challenge, threat from the government, from the state. How? You know, in India, I am not explaining any of the recent experiences which is happening in our democratic country in India, because the state is trying to have absolute control over the media. Directly and indirectly, the state want to control, absolute control over the media. It is not good for a healthy democracy. See, investigation by the Enforcement Directorate, Central Bureau of Investigation, income tax officials, so many things, investigation in a way, pressurizing the media house to align with the government, not to oppose the government. The dissent view shall not be published. All the views, news, expressions, everything should be in consonance with the policy and program of the government. Is it good for a healthy democracy? And to curbing the power of media through so many legislations. Due to paucity of time, I am not going to the examples. And further, not giving any advertisements to the press, to the media. By that way, financially, the press will be in trouble. And so many other means, by hook or crook, nowadays the government is trying their level best to make all the medias, whether it is print media or electronic media, under their control. The second aspect is the post-neoliberal globalization. See, we are all nowadays supporting the globalization. Okay, I am having a distinct, different view in respect to the globalization. If you critically examine the 25 years or 27 years of the neoliberal structural economic reforms aggressively pursued by the Indian rulers or the Indian government, if you see, the commercialization has become the order of the day. Everywhere. Because survival of the fittest is the philosophy on globalization. Survival of the fittest. Because in a market economy, you cannot survive without competition. And in the competition you have to survive, you should be you should be the fittest to be there in the market. This is the philosophy which we are pursuing all these years. That is aggressively we are pursuing the policies of the neoliberal economic reforms. Definitely it will reflect in the media also. Because commercialization, making maximum profit, that is the total motto of the press, then the basic ethical values of the media will be losing. So, a key player in promoting the culture of competitive market, and thereby the media is also getting benefit. See, most of the corporate houses throughout the globe, if you examine in America, Britain, in Europe, in every countries, most of these media houses are being owned, controlled and regulated by the corporate business houses. So the interest of the business houses and the corporate houses will be reflected in the media. Instead of an independent, fair view will never be published in the media. In that place, the corporate interest will be reflected. There also the freedom of the press, in a way or other way, it will be directly attacked. And political parties now started to capitalize this public influence, public attitude to capture power. See, I would like to cite an example. Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, I am not saying any politics, in India spent $140 million on publicity in every year. Per year, $140 million is being spent by a political party in India just for advertisement. Out of this, 43% of the expenditure goes to the print media alone. 43% of the total $140 million goes to advertisement in print media in the newspapers. And further, the government advertisements in print media and visual media. In that way, indirectly and directly, the government is taking control of the entire media. And further, I have to ask a question. See, the survival of the media is depending on the government revenue. then how can we expect that the media to be fair, independent, unbiased? How can we expect that the media should be fair, independent, and unbiased if the government or if the media, the press is depending on the government revenue? It is practically impossible. That is why I would like to say, see, another statistics I will say, currently 36% of the daily newspapers earn over half of their total income from the government of India and the TV channels. 36% of the daily newspapers, their gross income, more than half of the gross income is from the government of India. Then how can you expect that the print media and the visual media be independent so as to express the views of the poor, marginalized, and the violation of the human rights? How you are expecting that that will be published or telecasted? In such a situation, I would like to say that it is practically not possible to have an unbiased media in the peculiar political situation prevailing in our country. It is practically impossible to have a free, independent media without any bias. See, the highly biased media is well evident during the COVID-19 pandemic. See, during the COVID-19 pandemic period, a study of 30 Indian newspapers and 41 TV channels with largest viewership rates in the country confirmed the existence of rampant media bias in India. Rampant media bias in India was well evident during the time of COVID-19 pandemic. The right of the people are taken away. The democratic right of the people are taken away, and what has happened, nobody knows. So rampant bias have taken place. This is independent report says. So this is the situation. So it is not practically possible to have an independent media without any bias. That is my independent observation I would like to make. And another reason is crimes against the press. See, the crimes against the press and journalists is increasing like anything. See, the IPI Death Watch 2021 report, the report said that at least 45 journalists were killed in 12 months. India is among the top 4 countries with most number of deaths on record. In 2021, Mexico, Afghanistan, third comes India, and then DRC. See, in between 2017 to 21, 138 cases of assault and attacks against journalists in UP alone. In Uttar Pradesh alone, 12 journalists were killed when they were on duty. I'm not mentioning any name. The Committee to Protect the Journalist and International Organization, CPJ, according to their observations and assessment, the year 2017 recorded findings of jailed journalists reaching 262. Turkey, China, Egypt account for more than half of the global jailed journalists. In 2019, 25 journalists were murdered when they were on duty. So journalism, we are talking of the free press, we are talking of the unbiased press. To strengthen the democratic values, free press, independent press is required. When we are talking of the free press and independent, unbiased media, you have to see that the profession of journalism has become a hard, risky job. They are constantly in fear of losing their lives or getting harm. This is the situation prevailing. How can we expect that media be unbiased? In such a scenario, how we are able to have an independent, unbiased media? See, another reason is raids, arrest and hostile takeovers. See, hostile takeovers, Dr. M.K. Munir, he is also from the press fraternity. After Asianet, actually the populistic channel propagated in Kerala, having populistic support was there, the India Vision. Dr. M.K. Munir was the chairman. See, he has rightly pointed out in this public audience that I am not able to continue because I am not able to have an independent observation or independent media to survive an independent media. This is a position. See, NDTV, you see the first English news channel 24/7 in India. They were almost, I will never say neutral, but they were aggressively criticizing the government for the anti-people policies. They were fighting against corruption, and they stood for the values of secularism and democracy. They stood for the secular democracy. What has happened? They were not biased. Yes, they were biased. For what? They were biased for the secular credentials of the country. They were biased for fighting against corruption. They were biased for protecting the values of democracy. They were biased for protecting the secular democratic republic fabric of India. What happened to that NDTV? Now NDTV is being taken over by Gautam Adani Group, against whom the Hindenburg report has come from United States of America, Hindenburg report. And what is it? How is it? I need not explain. See what has happened in 2014? All these years are very, very important. This has happened in 2022. NDTV was taken over by 2022. In 2014, after assuming this government in office, immediately after that, Network 18, that is News 18 channel, Network 18 was taken over by Mukesh Ambani. So those who write reports against anybody, it is very difficult to survive even in Indian media fraternity. So so many harassment against the latest journalist arrested was Irfan Maharaj from Jammu Kashmir. Siddiq Kapan's case, Kerala, we know it very well. Siddiq Kapan's case, how many months he was put in jail. What was the crime he has done? To expose the truth of incidents which took place in India. See, this is the situation. In such a situation, these crimes, intimidation, definitely will have its own impact in the democratic system. And another point which I would like to make is intolerance to hear the voice of dissent leads to dictatorship. See, the right to I would like to appeal to all the students, what is democracy? Democracy, we all know the explanation, democracy for the people, by the people, of the people. But I feel the basic ingredient of democracy is the right to dissent. What I say from this platform, you are having the absolute right to dissent me, oppose me. Yesterday we have seen in the debate one who is speaking for and another young student is speaking against. That means the right to dissent is the essence of democracy. Now what is happening? Nowadays, the governments, whether it is at the union government or the state government, I am not going to any instances, but they are trying to suppress the voice of dissent. Just an example, I would like to mention Rahul Gandhi's disqualification. I am not going to the details, because the first session of the parliament, budget session, was in the month of February. He made an eloquent speech attacking the government of having unholy nexus with the government and one of the big corporate in the country, and he has made some specific allegations against the Prime Minister for having unholy nexus with the corporate houses. The second session of the budget started in the month of March. You see, from the first day onwards, the entire house, proceedings of the house were disrupted, none other than by the treasury benches. Consecutively for 7 days. No business is transacted. What is the reason? Rahul Gandhi has to apologize to the people because he has made a speech in London regarding the democracy is under threat in India. 2 days after, police has come to the house on a reason that he has made a speech during the Bharat Jodo Yatra in Jammu Kashmir that a girl is raped. 3 days after, Surat Chief Judicial Magistrate has issued a verdict, a judgment. Chief Judicial Magistrate of the Surat Court issued a magistrate that he has made a speech in 2019. We are talking of freedom of speech and expression. fundamental right, the heart and soul of the fundamental right. Article 19(1)(a). He has made a speech in Kolar 2019 in Karnataka during the 17th Lok Sabha election. He has made some observation. Against that, the Chief Judicial Magistrate of the Surat has given a verdict giving maximum punishment under Section 499 and 500 of Indian Penal Code of 2 years for rigorous imprisonment and 15,000 fine. If it is 1 day less than 2 years, then he cannot be disqualified. Within 24 hours from the date, from the verdict, the Lok Sabha Secretariat disqualified Rahul Gandhi from the membership of Lok Sabha. Within 24 hours, he is issued with a notice. Immediately, you have to vacate the house within 30th of March. And he has approached the Sessions Court, no stay. And very interesting fact is, if you go through the judgment, in the judgment, 5 Supreme Court judgments were quoted. All the Supreme Court judgments quoted by the Sessions Judge is in favor of Rahul Gandhi, but denying the bail. What is the reason? The appellant is not able to convince the court what are the consequences of taking away the membership in Lok Sabha. The irreparable loss and injury caused to the appellant, he is not being well convinced to the court. What is to be convinced? If your membership in Lok Sabha is taken away or disqualified, what are the consequences? Who does it know it? So this is the way. That means the dissent voice, dissent voice has to be suppressed. I think that this is not good for a healthy democracy. The right to dissent is the essential of our democratic system. And the fifth point which I would like to make is, the recently 3rd May was the International Day of Media. There, the Reporters Without Borders, this is an NGO, it is not a government organization, I do accept. But Reporters Without Borders always they are assessing and evaluating the freedom of press prevailing in various countries across the world. See, they have submitted a report day before yesterday. That is on 3rd May 2023. See, the World Press Freedom Index. In the World Press Freedom Index, India's position is 161 out of 180 countries. And the interesting fact, dear students, you have to note, in 2022, it was 150. In 2021, it was 142. Even Afghanistan, like countries, are far ahead of us. India is the biggest democracy in the world. We are proud of India. After 1947, though so many times there was apprehensions that there was no absolute majority, hung parliament, but we were able to survive the democratic system, parliamentary democratic system, because of the willpower of the people of India, because of our tradition, because of our heritage. That is the cultural heritage of India, the democratic fabric of India. But you see, in order to protect the core values of democracy, freedom of press is highly essential. In that area, India's position is 161 out of 180 countries. This is the pathetic situation prevailing in our country. See, the recent occurrences, if you examine, the recent tax raid on BBC, immediately after the Hindenburg report regarding India, the Modi question, and filing a case against British Broadcasting Corporation. I am not going to the details of it. Immediately after the publication of the report, the income tax authorities raided the BBC office and filed an FIR, and the case is progressing. And second, it's recently occurred, arrest of Sanjay Rana, journalist. What is the crime he has done? In a press conference convened by a state minister of UP cabinet, This local press person has asked a question. What about the promises you have made during the election and how far it is implemented? Only a simple question put up by a local journalist to a minister in UP government in the press conference, and he is being arrested without any bail and he is in custody, he is in jail. See, to assess, evaluate the misleading news against the government, an authority is given to the Press Information Bureau. Whether the medias are giving good news, correct news, whether it is giving fake news, in order to, whether it is paid news, in order to check it, who is being given authority? It is not an independent authority. Whether any fake news, false news, misleading news is coming in print media or in the electronic media, visual media, that will be assessed, evaluated by the Press Information Bureau, government organization. What is the independence of press? What is the independence of media? The government itself is examining, assessing, evaluating whether the news is fake or correct, and they will take action, recommend action. So this is the way by which the things are going on in our country, the largest democracy in the world. But still, I am having some hope. Yes, India is the biggest democracy in the world. The cultural tradition of 5,000 thousands of years of our cultural tradition. If you go through the Vedas, if you go through the Upanishad, the Guru is telling something to the Shishyans or their disciples, and the disciples or the Shishyans, they are not simply following it, they are putting counter questions. All the Upanishads are debates, asking question, counter question. That is right to dissent. That is the essence of democracy. That is why I am saying that India got independent, though India got independent only in 1947 and became republic in the year 1950. But even years before, thousands of years before, we had the culture of democratic values. That is the culture of Indian democracy. So definitely we are not losing the hope. I think that the recent judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in media one case, I request all the participants of the debating competition who have participated yesterday, kindly go through the judgment of Media One's case judgment. In that judgment, the Honorable Supreme Court is saying that media cannot be forced to support the observations or the programs and policies of the government. Critical evaluation of the programs and policies of the government is not the reason to ban a media. And further, the Honorable Supreme Court has unequivocally said that it is the bound and responsibility and duty of the media to criticize the government and to make the government accountable to the people. This is the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. That is why I am saying the ray of hope is not lost. Still it is there. So my dear students, I would like to say that Media One case gives us a ray of hope of protecting the freedom of media and thereby to have an unbiased media to strengthen the democratic fabric of our country, for which we have to be united, because freedom is for the new generation. The democracy should survive. If the democracy is to be survived, definitely the freedom of the press has to be protected, for which we have to fight for the noble cause for protecting the values of democracy by protecting the freedom of press, to have an independent press, unbiased press. Yes, we know expenditure revenue is required for running a newspaper or an visual channel, but that has got its own limits. But the basic values, the core values of the freedom of press has to be protected, and thereby we have to strengthen our democratic system. I firmly believe that yesterday's competition in memorial or to commemorate P.A. Ibrahim Haji And the competition, the debating competition will definitely put light to the minds of the people, to the minds of the young generation, to light the thinking of the young generation so as to understand the latest precarious situation prevailing not only in India, throughout the globe. So definitely we have to come forward so as to protect the democratic values, so as to protect the future of the generation as dreamed by P.A. Ibrahim Haji. He was always concerned about the future generation. Definitely the subject, the topic which you have selected to discuss and compete in the debating competition absolutely come within the memory of P.A. Ibrahim Haji. Once again, I pay my tributes, is to pay my loving tributes to his memory, to his family members, to all the members. I convey our all these things, and definitely let this, once again I take this opportunity to congratulate the school and the participants for having such a wonderful competition and having a seminar on this current topic of free media or independent media, or it is a biased media. With these words, I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks for having the patience to hear me this much of time and getting an opportunity to address this august audience. Thank you very much. I conclude with this.
Thank